So hi, assalamualaikum everyone. We are from Group 1 and my group members are Ibnu Nafis, me, Nawal Alia and Shamila Devi, and our preferred American past foreign policy is a Truman Doctrine. Right now, I will talk about the overview of this policy, which is the Truman Doctrine. So, at precisely 1 p.m. on March 12, 1947, President Harry S. Truman briskly walked down the aisle of the chamber of the House of Representatives, prepared to deliver a major address before a joint session of Congress. Carrying only a black folder, he made his way to the Speaker's rostrum and, after the applause came to a close, began a speech that will help to shape the nation's present and future security policy. As he read from his notes, members of Congress recognized the gravity of the moment. The British government had announced an end to its aid program in Greece and Turkey, and the congressmen knew that the president was calling upon them to do something never done before in peacetime: approve a massive military and economic foreign assistance program that will involve the United States in European political and military affairs. The situation in Greece and Turkey, the president declared, demanded America's immediate attention. The Greek government was in danger of collapsing to communist guerrillas pursuing terrorist activities in the north, and it had appealed to the United States for aid. If the call went unheeded, the only democratic country in the Balkans would fall into totalitarian rule. Conditions in Turkey were not as immediately serious, but that country's independence and integrity were likewise crucial to the maintenance of order in the Middle East. Unless the United States defended these free peoples, no nation would be safe from the forces of the totalitarians. The collapse of Greece and Turkey will undermine the foundations of international peace and hence the security of the United States. Over halfway into the address, the president highlighted the principle underlying what became known as the Truman Doctrine. He said, "I believe that it must be the policy of the United States to support free peoples who are resisting attempted subjugation by armed minorities or by outside pressures. As a leader of the free world, the United States had a duty to protect the right of free people to decide their destiny. Such assistance should be primarily through economic and financial aid, which is essential to economic stability and orderly political processes. If Greece and Turkey should fall, shockwaves should reverberate throughout the Middle East and Europe, sending a message to the beleaguered people of those parts of the world that the United States assurances of our self-determinations were mere rhetoric." The president asked Congress to appropriate 400 million in economic and military aid for Greece and Turkey, and to approve the assignment to each country of American civilians and military advisors to implement the program. "If we falter in our leadership, we may endanger the peace of the world, and we shall surely endanger the welfare of our own nations." Though the president had specifically mentioned only Greece and Turkey, he had left room for a general application of his principles by emphasizing that those two countries were only part of a broader problem resulting from the decline of British power. Even though he had not referred to the communists as the armed minorities and to the Soviets as the outside pressures, his remarks left no doubt about their directions. The president sought congressional approval to help any free people who were resisting totalitarian rule. Truman and his advisors, some of whom also will advise President Kennedy, developed a foreign policy that was adaptable in strategy to shifting the challenges to democracy. Though Turkey was included in the aid program, Most of the problems had erased in the late 1946 as the Soviets withdrew their diplomatic pressure, but an emergency prevailed in Greece. The Truman administration's policy in that country was realistic in the application and idealistic in purpose. Its composite thrust was military, economic and political, allowing adjustment as the nature of the threat changed. The policy rested on the fundamental premise that freedom was indivisible, that wherever it was endangered, so also was America's future in jeopardy. So for the analytical framework, so this study examines the Truman Doctrine as a past foreign policy of the United States. The President Harry S. Truman vowed to help all democratic nations threatened by external or domestic totalitarian forces, in this context the Soviet Union, that has shifted the foreign policy of the U.S. from its traditional position of retreat from regional crises that do not directly involve the United States and toward potential involvement in international conflicts. So this study focuses on the critical events involved in this foreign policy, which are the Greek Civil War and the Turkish Straits crisis. The main reason why we choose these two events is due to the speech made by the President Truman that explicitly mentioned Greece and Turkey for the U.S. to assist with both of these countries. The Truman Doctrine started from 1945 until 1989. However, the time frame involved in this study is from July 20, 1936 until August 6, 1946 for Turkish Straits crisis, and the Greek Civil War period from 1946 until 1949.
In this part, we will get to know about the Greek Civil War and Turkish Strait crisis. This civil war was occurred between 1943 until 1949 against the lead out of the Kingdom of Greece, upheld by the United Kingdom and the United States. At the end of the kingdom, the Turkey won. In 1947, Truman Doctrine was pivotal for Greece to have the option to try not to fall into the circle of Soviet impact while the nation was desolated by the nationwide. Moreover, President Harry S. Truman was declared the demonstrated that the U.S. were politically, military, and monetary help to all just countries until danger from outside or inward dictator powers. The contribution of the United States in the Greek nationwide conflict denoted another period in their disposition towards world government. Now let's move to the Turkish Strait crisis. As the Turkish government will not submit to the Soviet Union's solicitation, straits emerged in the district, fomenting a demonstration of maritime power on the Soviets to encourage what later acts as the game changer in the giving the Truman Doctrine a Soviet military development. Thank you. This part will be discuss about the implication of America itself. This part is divided into two parts, which are negative and positive impacts. Firstly, we'll get to know about the positive impacts, which are on Marshall Plan and NATO. On Marshall Plan, the Marshall Plan, also known as the European Recovery Program, was a US program providing aid to Western Europe following the devastation of World War II. The Marshall Plan is also considered as a key catalyst for the formation of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, a military alliance between North America and Europe countries established in 1949. The Marshall Plan provided aid to the recipients essentially on the per capita basis, with larger amount given to a major industrial powers such as Western Germany, France, and Great Britain. This was based on the belief of Marshall and his advisors that recovery in these larger nations was essential to overall European recovery. The Marshall Plan is incapable linked to the policy of containing the Soviet Union and perhaps more than any other single element of the pivotal significance in crystallizing the East-West conflict in Europe. Together with the Truman Doctrine, it considered two clear sides in an ideologically and economic conflict. It is often described as a corollary of the Truman Doctrine as both are directed against the Soviet expansion. However, both differ in their technical development, and the Truman Doctrine focused on military aid such as that lent to Greece and Turkey in the 1940s. Marshall Plan was a package of purely economic aid. Let's move on to the negative impacts. American and British lawmakers were worried about location in Greece and Turkey. In 1946, a nationwide conflict had begun occurring in Greece between Western upheld government and supportive of socialist powers. Truman needed to convince the generally neutralized US government to give America cash to help Greece battle against socialism and spread out his reason in a discourse to Congress in March 1947. In that discourse, he granted that the USA will give help to any nation confronted by this. He expressed it should be the agreement of the United States to help free people groups who are opposing and over engulfment by acute minority by outside pressures. It was certain that Truman was adhering to nations opposing the Finnish socialist takeover. However, it was not spelled it out such direct terms, thus offered the US government chance to make a move where they believed they expected to step in. America was currently dedicated to a strategy of control and hardening the spread of socialism. Secondly, one of the world's 16 nations got Marshall Aid, Britain and France being the significant beneficiaries. West Germany, likewise, just shy of 1.4 billion sterling in extremely furious with his he did not in the major areas of the strength. Soviet expression, the Cold War origin in the West German needed to make a strong cradle against socialism. He did not maintain that Germany should be powerless. By the 1942, most Western European nations had eroded to their pre-war levels creation. The socialist factions in France and Italy lost their helps as way of life rose.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good day to Dr. Lala and fellow congressmen. I would like to say thank you for Shamila for pass the next part to me. So in my part, I would like to explain about the implication of Truman Doctrine to others in the realm of international relations, which is in this part. I would like to focus on two things, which is communism containment, and the second one is Vandenberg resolution. So the first implication of the Truman Doctrine towards others in the international relations realm is communism containment, which is, as we know, that British stopped funding Greece in February 1947, and British informed to us, which is the United States of America, about it. And as we know, during that time, the US State Department felt threat due to the issues arose due to financial problems in Greece and Turkey. And the Soviet Union may gain control of the Black Sea Straits if there's no one wanted to help both Greece and Turkey at that moment. So during that time, communist influence in Greece would likewise increase Soviet power in an area of vital importance to the United States and its European allies. And the political justifications for United States to help Turkey and Greece were that they were still resisting the communist menace and may be spared from communism. The issues was really critical at that moment for the West, because if Greece fell to the hands of communism, which is Soviet Union, Turkey may become an unsustainable outlier in the sea of communism. And similarly, if Turkey cave into Soviet Union hands, so which is Soviet Union demands, Greece's position would be severely jeopardized. So I must say that that was a regional domino effect threat that guided the United States' decision to initiate the Truman Doctrine to help Greece and Turkey back in 1947. So after 2 years of the Truman Doctrine's implementation, Greece and Turkey became United States allies, and they joined the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is NATO. And the communism containment planned by the USA via Truman Doctrine was a successful method to contain the communism spread in Europe, especially in Turkey and Greece. So for the next part, which is the Vandenberg Resolution. So the Vandenberg Resolution was the second implication that I would like to highlight in this part of the Truman Doctrine, which is as we know that the resolution was drafted by the Under Secretary Lovett to the Senate of Foreign Relations Committee, and it already approved, and it been approved by the committee. So when the Vandenberg introduced the Truman Doctrine into the Senate, they passed 64-6, a resolution advising the president to seek the security of America and the rest of the free world by the support of mutual defense agreement that operated with the United Nations Charter, but outside the United Nations Security Council, since Soviet veto would otherwise thwart the collective defense agreements. So the resolution was a watershed moment that paved the ground for the NATO, and the idea for such an alliance emerged at the Pentagon talks in Washington in March. But U.S. actions would been hindered without the Senate resolution recognizing the country's internationalist stance. And the truly importance of the Vandenberg resolution is that it's towards the American foreign policy and towards the others in the international relation realms, which is America is more open in handling crises in other countries, and it makes that the other nation in the international relation realms get help from the United States, which is in terms of financial, economically, security, maybe in military aspect. And with the implementation of the Truman Doctrine, the United States of America actually became the founder of NATO, and it's actually benefited all the members of NATO at that moment who sought to create a counterweight to Soviet armies at that moment stationed in Central and Eastern Europe after World War II. Move on to the next part, which is the policy recommendations to President Biden. In this part, we actually wanted to ask Mr. President to initiate back the Truman Doctrine, because as we can see from the history itself, the Truman Doctrine was really a successful doctrine in helping other nations that need our help, maybe in terms of financial, economic, and military aspect. Okay, so in this part, we really recommend to Mr. President to help East Timor, which is we looking to the status of East Timor as one of the least developed countries in the world. This is based on the research made by the United Nations, and still until now, East Timor is still one of the poorest countries in East Asia, which is they really relying significantly on international help to build their nation. And there are too many aspects that we should worry about in East Timor, which is they have the internal conflict, the political instability, and others. And we really urge the Mr. President to act by helping East Timor to rebuild back their nations, because I must say that their country is really beautiful, and we can see those with beautiful places in their country. But in terms of economy, in political, in maybe internal conflict, and also the security aspects, they really need our help. Okay, so which is the first one, the first reason, which is the economy. Okay, so we really know that based on the ranking in the world, countries index score about economy, everything in, which is they score 46.3, and they're ranking in at 164 in the 2022 index. And based on the Asia Pacific area, they are currently 37 out of 39 nations, okay, with an overall score that is really lower than the regional or global norms. And the economic development has been difficult to come by in Timor-Leste over the last 5 years. And even though their trend in economic freedom has been maintained, and the monetary and trade freedom is rather good, while fiscal financial independence is weak, and their tax burden and so on in average scale. Okay, so other than that, East Timor had once experienced in a food crisis back in 2007, and during that time, one-fifth of the East Timor population are facing severe food shortage, and they really need help from outside their country in international level, and they get help from the United Nations to handle the food crisis. And while uh, when the food crisis happened back in 2007, they actually had a political crisis during that moment, and we are afraid that it will happen again anytime soon due to many shortages happening in this country. And in this aspect of security, we can see that even though East Timor already gained independence 20 years ago, but there's still some shortage in terms of security issues, such as the military, due to some internal issues. And in East Timor, they still cannot and settle and combat the issues such as the pro-independence group and others. And I really think that USA can send help in terms of the military to train the army of East Timor, and provide them financially for East Timor to buy their military types of equipment such as arms, cannons, tanks, submarines, helicopters, jet aircraft, and many more. And with their political crisis, we are very sure it is very hard for them to spend the government money to buy the military types of equipment that I already mentioned before. So in this, as the conclusion, I really hope that USA may help East Timor in helping them and initiate back the Truman Doctrine, just for help them in the terms of financial, economic, political stability, and military aspect, and also the security aspect. Thank you.